Hello, welcome to I Read This Book with Chris, with me, Chris. Today we will be discussing Recursion by Blake Crouch while I am drinking a spice latte. Blake Crouch. I've talked previously about the fact that there are not very many modern sci-fi books that I enjoy. Blake Crouch is going to be one exception to that. I have not read all of his stuff, I don't believe, but I read his Wayward Pines trilogy and Dark Matter. And now, Recursion. I bought this book to read, planning on reading it, and then I listened to it on audiobook. So, let's talk about it. Blake Crouch does a lot of modern, dark, I don't know if it's super dark, but darker thriller science fiction. Every one that I've read so far by him is that. And Recursion, I really enjoyed. Maybe it might be my favorite book by him so far. It is, we can remember for it, let's see, I always trip over the name of it. We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, which is a short story by Philip K. Dick that was turned into Total Recall. When I started listening to it, that's what I thought it was. I thought it was a modern reinterpretation of that, which I was very excited for. Except it ends up being way darker and more twisted. It involves time travel. Since it is a thriller and it is a new book that you could very easily come across, I think, or go out to buy. I'm really not sure how I want to discuss it. A lot of the other books that I pick up, they are not books that people would normally pick up, or if you do, you'd pick them up because maybe, hey, I watched a video about that, I heard about that, and it made me interested. Blake Crouch, I don't really think you need a whole lot of reason to go buy him. If you see him, pick him up. And since it's a thriller, and not a mystery, but there are things that happen later on I do not want to ruin. This book, well, reading through it was like 3 or 4 books, and every time it changed, it got deeper and deeper. One of the things about listening to it in an audiobook versus reading it is, sure, I knew how long the audiobook was, but when you're actually getting into it, you don't pay attention to the fact. If you're in the book and you're reading it and it's halfway through, you know, hey, I got to the point, there's still another half of the book. I thought we were done. I thought we were getting to the end, and then it ended up going deeper and deeper, and holy cow. Holy cow, was this a good book. I really don't want to say a whole lot because I think it's something that you'd better enjoy. So, let me just talk about a few themes in here. Try to be kind of vague. One, We Can Remember It For You Wholesale by Philip K. Dick. Is a story where a guy living a humdrum life goes to, it's the shady part of town. He goes to a place where basically they change your memories so that you think you went on a vacation somewhere and you can just pay money to have the memory of going on vacation without ever having to do it. Or you can go and try to change your backstory, change what happened previously in your life. And all sorts of shenanigans happened in that, which is why they were able to make not only 1 but 2 good movies out of it. Total Recall. Go watch that if you can. That's what I thought it was, because that's how it starts off, where you go to a place, it's a detective. Blake Crouch really enjoys detectives in his books. The Wayward Pine trilogy, I believe, is a sheriff, and this is a police detective for NYPD. Dark Matter, I don't believe, was a police officer. A detective following a trail to try to figure out why someone committed suicide. He was there and tried to stop her, but she ended up jumping off the roof. He goes and he finds this organization which says they can go and help you change your memories. Except they don't have you change your memories. What they're doing is they're killing you, and your consciousness is getting sent back in time, and you, with your consciousness that you have now, go back and you can relive that from that point on and can change it. So if you're right now and you want to change what happened back in 2010, you just go, you remember that point 14 years ago, and now all of the memories that you have now, everything you know what's going to happen in the future, comes true? No. I don't know what I'm saying. Right now it's 2024. You go back to 2010, except it only sends your consciousness back to 2010. You have all the memories from your 2024 body, and you just go back and you live from that point on. So you already know what's going to happen for those next 14 years. That is probably my favorite form of time travel. There are a couple different ways of explaining it. One is when you go and you have time travel and you have multiple timelines. There's some time travel where you're going along and there's only one timeline. You can go back, but you can't kill your grandfather, because if you were to kill your grandfather, then you would never be born. So every time you try to do it, your gun jams, or you get behind him and try to strangle him, but he overpowers you. And no matter what you can do, it's impossible. That's what happens with one timeline. The way it works here is you can have multiple timelines, but once you go back, the timeline that you are in becomes dead. It is no longer true or accurate. It's completely dead. There's no life to it anymore. I'm sure if you are familiar with time travel at all, there's often the idea that there's a bunch of different timelines and you can jump from one back to the other, and if you go back in time, you're actually in a different timeline, and your previous timeline now goes on without you. That's not what happens here. Another way of describing this same phenomenon that I prefer is the growing or shrinking block. You can imagine it like, the way it makes sense to me is like you're in a video game. You're going through, you reach level 1, you reach level 2, you reach level 3, you die in the middle of level 3. You come back to the beginning of level 3. Guess what? Now you, watching the video game, have all the memories of what's going on here. So even though you're doing it again, you have memories of what's going to happen in the future. And sure, things can change. If you go a different route, things will be different. But you know, if you had gone that route, what would have happened? And if you go that route, the same thing will happen. Or you can choose a previous save point. It's known as the growing and shrinking block. And I think it's rather underutilized. I think a lot of time travel now is either the single timeline or the 17 timelines that every time gets more and more complicated. Or even crazier version of that is the multi-world, where there are all these other timelines and you're not actually going back in time. When you're going back in time, it's back in time but on a separate timeline, not your own timeline. Anyway, so hopefully that's kind of selling it for you. It's kind of Total Recall with time travel. But it gets so far, it has layers upon layers upon layers. Blake Crouch and his books, all the books that I've read so far. It's a little frustrating. Every single time I notice one or two very small plot holes. They're things that you could read as not being a plot hole, or you could just read over it if you're reading fast and you may not notice it. But if you are paying attention and you're reading it in the way that makes the most sense, there is a plot hole. None of it is anything that ruins the plot, but I noticed it in both Recursion and in Dark Matter. With the Wayward Pine trilogy, I don't believe there was. It would be a little harder for there to be plot holes in that one. Because Dark Matter is about the many worlds interpretation, where, like I was kind of describing with the time travel, except this is a time travel, there's a bunch of different parallel universes. So there's it's very easy to have plot holes in parallel universe or time travel fiction. And there are some, I don't think there are anything that ruin it, but it's just something to, if you are someone who's very finicky about that, just be aware. Overall, there's not a whole lot for me to say, because I don't want to ruin it. But Recursion, if you see it, pick it up, by Blake Crouch. Any other books by him, if you see it, I would pick it up. It's a good book, and if thrillers are your thing, it's not horror, nothing scary. It is dark, nothing too dark, I don't think. But it's something that when you get into, you just want to keep on going. You want to see where it goes. Yeah, good book. So thank you for watching my video. Make sure to give it a like if you liked it. If you're not subscribed, subscribe for more weird videos about me talking about books.